Welcome to the GamesNet Berlin Europe podcast. Here, we speak with extraordinary games industry professionals and listen to their story, to learn all about what they've built and who they are. GamesNet Berlin Europe is the international games industry initiative of MediaNet Berlin-Brandenburg, the networking association for the media, creative and digital industries in Germany's capital region. My name is Simon Ohler, and I will be your host for this program. Today, I'm speaking with Kristian Metzger. He is the founder and CEO of Stratosphere Games. Stratosphere develops AAA MMO titles for mobile and beyond. In part 1, which you are listening to right now, we speak about the current state of Stratosphere and the games they are developing right now. We talk about Kristian's career and the many places it took him, and how his different career steps prepared him for being a CEO and leader. And we also cover how his vision for his company looks like. And I can tell you, it's a very unique and personal vision. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast to also find part 2 of this episode. In part 2, we go over personal development topics. So please enjoy my conversation with Kristian Metzger. Hi, Kristian, and welcome to the show.
Hi. Hi, Simon.
Hi. I'm good, thank you. It's the weather is wonderful on these mid-May days that we are on right now. A short taste of tasty summer. I like it. Very much.
I hope it brings the change we're all waiting for.
I think so. You are, of course, the founder and CEO of Stratosphere Games. I know you're working on some cool games right now that you care a lot about. So I thought, why don't you just take a second to pick us up where Stratosphere and you are at right now, because I know that you have some cool stuff in the works, so we know where you're at.
Oh, yeah, sure. Happy to. The company itself exists for quite a while now already. I know nowadays 6 years is already a long time. So we are officially not even called a startup anymore, at least when it comes to our bank and even I think the taxes. After 5 years, you even have to, that changes your status. So yeah, we started 5 years ago, formerly coming from a company called Splash Damage. And we always were set out to make high-end premium mobile games. And after some big changes from team-wise, strategy-wise, we settled in 2018-19 was basically the big change here. And 2 big things happened to us. One is we got some really cool work-for-hire jobs, which got us to profitability, which is rare and hard to hit nowadays, especially in the earlier days. And then we got a deal with Gearbox Publishing to make Homeworld Mobile. So Homeworld Mobile, I don't know if anyone knows Homeworld itself. Homeworld is a very, very, very famous PC strategy IP. It is really old as well. It is the first came out in 1999. The second one, I think, in 2001 or 2 was it? And then there was a successor many years later. 2015 came a new one, and now there's a third one in the making. So, and when we had a concept, went directly to Randy Pitchfork, the owner of the IP, and a few years later, it took us quite a while to land that deal. We got the deal to make an MMO out of it. So what we are currently doing, that we did that for the last nearly 2 years, is basically taking the original PC IP, taking that whole awesome world, thanks to some of our artists, which also work in the modding community, funnily, and take that cool IP and then basically bring it to mobile, bring it in an MMO style experience. So it's an always online multiplayer experience. So basically transforming that IP and bringing it in the next century, I hope, and make it really amazing. And we have a technical test running at the moment. Interestingly, it's still running a few weeks before we switch off the servers to basically to test everything out and then go open beta this summer. And this is for us the big one. It's the biggest team. There are over 25 people on that project. It has really good numbers so far, and it's really unique. I think it's a game. There's not many out there. It's a very hardcore game for mobile, and that's I think one of the key components here is we're not doing that normal mobile first let's see what Supercell does, and we try to copy it. So this is one game where we really put in a lot of effort with the whole team to basically make a super unique experience, and also bringing a pretty hardcore genre, which is RTS, real-time strategy game, into MMO and on mobile. So I think it's a pretty it's not just an amazing title for me personally, and it's not because I love that IP. So working on your most beloved IP is not just awesome, but also it is a big endeavor to basically see is like is mobile, and is not just mobile but potentially another platform. Is this ready basically for these kind of super hardcore games? We saw some examples out there that do that, but
how can I imagine this game when you say it's a homeworld is obviously set in space, and then it's also an RTS and it's also an MMO. Like, just maybe can you give me a glimpse of the gameplay loop or what's going on there? How can I imagine the game
I mean,
itself?
one of the specialties of Homeworld is that it's a very different RTS because you don't build a base. You have your base always with you, and your base is literally your flagship slash mothership in the case of Homeworld 1 and 2. And these kind of flagships you build and research and do everything internally. So basically, you take the whole time your whole base with you, so you don't have building phases and everything else. That makes it automatically very well usable for MMO experience. So you have your character flagship. Just imagine the flagship is a little bit like your character in like in World of Warcraft, yeah. And every one of the flagship has their own roles on the battlefield. Fighters, there will be support characters, there will be carriers, there will be basically flagships that are catered to a certain playstyle. And so basically, you take that, then you have a supporting fleet, which is all controlled via a special tab control system. It's hard to explain. You have to try it out. It is the idea behind it is it doesn't matter if you're on a small device or on a big device. It plays very similar on all these, and hopefully really amazing. And the base idea is that you're slowly growing up your fleet. You have a whole galaxy to explore. At the moment, we have around 100 systems, but as a technical test. In the final game, we will have around 150 to 200 more handcrafted ones. Later in the life cycle, we will have procedural generated systems in there where you can. So what you basically do, you get your ship, you play missions. The missions are very short. They're between 5 to 15 minutes. You have to defeat an enemy. You have to defend an ally. There's like small generated missions. They are by the way unlimited. And then you get from that, you get resources, you get credits like currencies, and then you research in your ship a new technology, and then you slowly go up the tiers. You start with a small ship, and then in the end you have a massive flagship, which can also fight like crazy. And the idea is that you then at one point join an alliance, and you can fight alliance wars. You can even capture solar systems and build your own bases. And another important factor, and that's I think also important, is like you come together with 4 people and you play a strike. That's how we call it. Similar to what Destiny does, or similar games, is like a dungeon also. So 4 people go into one big, massive battle against NPCs, and you have to work together to basically defeat that. So, and the idea behind that is, so it's role playing meets strategy, it meets MMO. And that's what I mean by unique. There's not a lot of games like that out there.
And is there a PvP as well?
There will be PvP. We will start with some simple PvP arena maps, and then later on there will be alliance wars, which are supposed to be much bigger. I mean, for me, it's like a mixture of what Eve Echoes does, a super hardcore RPG online sci-fi experience, taking that to mobile and trying to make that work. And I think that's a similar approach that we had. We basically take the original Homeworld experience, which is even more hardcore than what we do. It has a full 3D movement range, which is a really crazy thing. And it was really a hard time getting that to work, even on the original. And I think why that's a very unique thing it would also hold it back. And it's a big issue for the future. And basically taking that 3D experience, making it a little bit simpler for mobile, and basically allowing that all come together into one online experience where you mix cool elements of a real-time strategy, MMOs, and also this universe to explore. And I think that's the special thing about it. And we think that the world is now slowly right for that. It took us for quite a while until mobile games came to the point where they're not just I don't know, cheap ripoffs of original games. They now can build like super high-end games which are at home on PC and on mobile. I mean, if you look now in the space from Fortnite to Call of Duty Mobile to PUBG and all these kind of games, some of them are even cross-play, so you can even play with each other there. But a lot of them, especially Korean action RPGs and so on, they are made for PC and mobile at the same time. So for us, it's also mobile first. We'll see later what happens to a potential PC version. That isn't decided yet. Has a lot to do also with how Homeworld 3 will fit in and all that kind of stuff. But for now, we basically built this. And this is also a big important move for the studio, because you have to imagine it's like at the beginning, the games we did, they were great games and they were AAA experiences from a mobile perspective. But a lot of my team, including me, we come from PC, free-to-play, AAA experiences. We want real, more hardcore experiences and less clicky mobile experiences. So for us, it was a natural development to basically go away from that mobile first, in the sense that it's just perfect for mobile device, more for an audience that searches for more hardcore experiences on mobile.
That sounds fantastic, and I'm very, very curious. We also, of course, want to talk about you and your career. So, when and how can people who are interested in this game now try it?
At the moment it's on homeworldmobile.com. There we have you can sign up and can join. For sure, you can join the technical test, which means that is still running, and then will run until end of this month. Latest, probably a little bit longer even. And then we will start an open beta, which will be just in several countries. What we do, everyone that joins up now, they will get an extra invite basically for while the open beta is running. The open beta normally is limited to certain countries, but for everyone that signs up now, these guys will basically get access to it, even if it's just launched somewhere else, like in Canada or wherever. So I think that's important. Also, due to some of the new restrictions on mobile, I don't know if you heard about it, with iOS 14.5, attribution is a little bit harder on iOS, and so we'll go for Google Play Open Beta first, just to basically test our systems and get our user acquisition and everything right. And this is what a lot of people now do, basically, because it will take a while until that situation around iOS 14.5 will be settled, and we will have a better understanding what kind of influences will have on the mobile space, by the way.
Understood. Fantastic. So everybody who's interested in that can find that at, what's the URL again?
Homeworldmobile.com.
Perfect. Fantastic. Really nice to hear. And I know that the IP is close to your heart. And I know you're obviously a gamer by heart. And it also seems like you're a jack of all trades. And I want to know a little bit about you and your career. So I know you've been a pro gamer, you've been a journalist, you've been a product owner, and now you're a startup founder. Are you actually a jack of all trades who kind of looks into a bunch of different directions? Or is there a common thread that goes through everything you're doing, maybe besides games? Feel free to take from that what you will.
Everything I did career-wise was, I'm very curious. I think that's a common trait, and I like people. I know nowadays it's sometimes not always that easy. In these diverting times, it's not simple to like people, but overall I would say I like people. I like to understand people, to know them, and everything I did was basically founded around that. Like, a lot of my jobs I did before I was studying journalism. First, I studied medicine. I stopped that because I was too much into Berlin. Had too much other things to offer than just learning. And then I studied journalism and politics. And I worked in journalism for over 15 years in total, I think. And the funny bit is, half of that was while I was studying. But I studied that mainly because I'm curious. I want to ask questions. I want to understand things. I want to analyze them. I want to understand what is wrong, what is right, and try to make a sense of it. And I think this making a sense of it, so like of not just myself, my life, but also the world, is something that I always enjoyed. I'm really and like, and I think that is basically my red line that goes for everything. So like understanding why something works exactly like it should be or not. And when I started with journalism, games were always there. I mean, they were always part of my life. Since I can walk, I basically played games. I had a Philips G5000, which is a super old school console that was even long before Super NES, and I had a Super NES for my first money, working at a lake. That was basically I was a cashier, and for that first money, I bought myself Street Fighter 2 Turbo Super NES. And so that games were always there, but I think the curiosity was more important for a long time for me, also because games always seemed a little bit limited to a certain extent in this time frame. And then, but when I was then a journalist in a music magazine, I wrote all these reviews about games, and more and more understood that, while I was a music journalist, I think I could have been a really amazing games journalist because I'm so much into it. I'm so passionate about it. I understand so much. I play so much, and so that is how basically it happens. Like while coming out of my esport career, I had my own clan. I was in Counter Strike. I was even German championship in 1999, and I played like 3, 4, 5 hours a day. And coming out of that, and together with my journalism career, I decided, okay, I wanna become that journalist. But the funny bit is, before I became that journalist, wrote about games a lot, and then while I was studying, back then I switched to electronic business. I also had to make my first game ever. It was a ad game for BMW. It was for pad. It was not a good game. It was horrible, honestly. And also I started then working with an agency on games for mobile phones back then. So I already did try to go into development back then, but honestly, working for these kind of games was really challenging because resolution was shit. The technology was so basic. You basically you had a PlayStation, but then you had these phone games which were like, I don't know. They had 170 pixel by 300 pixels, and everything was hard. There was no controls for it. So I really, really, really tried to get into gaming already, but it just didn't get me. So I took the easy way out. I got an offer for Eurogamer, a very big network. I don't know who knows that is one of the biggest European game websites. And the German outlet searched for a co-editor in chief. And so I choose the easy way out and going back to journalism while I really tried to edge my way into game development, but it just wasn't fun. I have to be honest, these times were just not fun. And so that's
Why
why
was
I
it
basically,
important for you
yeah.
to go into game development while you were kind of pursuing that goal of I want to be a games journalist?
That's the funny bit about it. It's like the games journalist thing was always my segue into game development, I would guess. Now, when I can say now in a retrospect, because I can tell you one thing, it's like, and this is the jack of all trades, master of none. I was never really, really good at anything else than writing or anything else good than socializing and doing things like that. I was never a real artist. I was never a programmer. It's like what I mean by that is like and this is this is probably like something which is discussed also a lot. It's like I was a games critic then, and games critics are similar to movie critics. A lot of people say about them is like, they're so harsh and mean sometimes because they never did their own game. So I think that challenged me always. This perception of journalism is just basically all the people that are never be able to make their own game, and I think that challenged me from the get go.
I think that's a good instinct because because don't they say nobody likes a critic? I mean, it's being a critic is like, I think it's even such a terrible word in a way. It's like why would you criticize something that somebody else made? I never really, well, sometimes I'm critical too, but then I always think the same. I'm like, well, have you tried making it yourself? And then maybe you will feel differently about it, or you will more appreciate the effort that a person has put into it. Is that what drove you to, kind of?
No, I mean, no, not really. Because being honest, my main thing here is that when you're a game critic, yeah, you try to put yourself in the position of a normal user, a normal player, and I think that's important. And I think for that, game critics are right, because it's always easier to criticize when you're not into it. Now I wouldn't be able to do critics anymore, because now I have the full perspective. Now I fully understand how much effort and blood, sweat, and tears it is to make a game. Now I could never do that anymore. It's like, but you know why I hope that I'm still really good in our business, and I hope that why our games will be better at the end is because I still be able to put myself into the shoes of a normal player. Because I think a lot of developers miss that. So yes, you're right. Critics have it easier because they just can pretend all that effort is not in and they don't understand everything. But it's probably good. It's probably good that game critics don't know that, because if they would know, they wouldn't be. They can't be then like looking from the perspective of a player. And I think that's the key component. And to my game designers and all these other people, to make them clear for them, that's the main thing that makes good games, is that you are able to switch your perspective and don't make games for you, or don't make games for your peers, make games for your audience. I think that's the key component, and I hope that is what I learned. And that's how I see it, is like everything I did, even after that, I was a PR guy, I was I worked in PR for Splash Damage, I was a biz dev guy, I worked a product director for free-to-play MMOs and stuff like that. Everything prepared me a little bit for that job, because I've now brought everything, I hope, or most things which you need as a CEO in this business to the table. Is understanding the players, understanding what makes good games and bad games, being able to promote them if I need to, if I'm able to sell them to the right partners or find the right partners, making the product better incrementally after you release this. All these kind of skills and tasks I basically learned. So like the last 20 years of my career was basically my preparation for becoming a CEO. And that's just how I feel at the moment. It's like, this is the culmination of my career. Now I'm finally...
Okay, so basically you learned from your journalist days how to put yourself into the mind of a new player, and then you learn from your PR days how to sell the game or how to promote a game, and you learned from your product days how to iterate on the game step by step. Is that about right? Are these the combinations that
and last but not least,
now?
As a biz dev guy, I understood how to find partners and how to sell the games to potential partners. I mean, just to be clear, it's like every game we ever did, we sold to a publisher. Or, I mean, if it's not self-published, that was another option. And my first game I even sold 3 times. So while the game itself was a big failure, as an example, I was able to sell it to three different people and make it somehow still viable for us. I think that's and this is the point, is like, and when I was starting the company, I was even had a lot of these roles. Yeah, I was the PR guy, I was the product manager, I was even a producer and a PR manager. I had all these roles, and now when the company comes back bigger, now it switches. So now I don't do the work anymore. I just give feedback back. I think that's the main thing with what basically changes here. But I have feedback for everything. I can give a new perspective. I can give new ideas even to junior people. I can teach people. I can help people to basically achieve the same goals here. And I think that's the cool bit is like, and this is why what I like so much about the job is that how everything changes. You, at the beginning, you do everything is handmade, everything you do yourself, blood, sweat, and tears. And then when you become bigger, it becomes much more supervisory role. And we discussed that, and this is a really important factor for me, is not just the career, it's also your personal change. So basically, you become from this just pure like working force in your company, you become much more like a mentor. You become I mean, it's probably a little bit too strong word, but you teacher at least a teacher. You become someone that is leading. Yeah, it's like leading other people, and I think that's the last bit, which was never in my career. What helped me a lot is like I discussed before. I like people, and I like to be around people. I'm curious about them, and I hope so. That makes me also a good boss because I'm really care for them. So for me, the company is also like a extended family. Yeah, I mean, for me, and I think that's something probably we can discuss a little bit more in detail later. It's like,
yeah, I would love to.
yeah, for me, it's friends and work friends as well. We're always a little bit more like a family. I had a good upbringing. Don't get me wrong, but we were never that, I don't know, 100 people family, and we shared everything, and we always stayed together, and there was 3 generations or whatever. What some people have, we always had a clearer separation between us. And for me, my friends and my and now also people that work with me are my family. I mean, and I think that's the key component here. What I wanna basically bring over is like, this was the foundation. What I built here is not just understanding and being successful, but also finding this family, and having basically support for everyone in this family, so no one gets the feeling that he's misused. We have several elements for that also comes on top of that. It's like, we have certain, as an example, the lowest salary and the highest salary can't be crazy multiples. At the moment, we have a fixed ratio of 2. So in the moment, that's something we even communicate to everyone that starts with the company. We the C levels that's me, yeah, just earn double as much as juniors. Yeah, there's some varieties. I'm being honest. It's like if someone is still directly in university or whatever, there's some varieties, but for normal juniors and starting, and my salary is at the moment a double. And I think as long as we still miss our big hit. I want to make that clear. It's like our games were all moderate successful, but never like a big hit. And to a certain extent, I'm willing. There could be some changes there, but I want to make clear that being a family and being honest and also very fair to everyone, I think is one of the key components for me, because there will be always studios out there or companies out there that can pay whatever they want. I mean, we had here in Berlin a really tough environment. I tell you, it's like some big studios like Voodoo, Wargaming, King. They are super successful multinational companies, and I can't provide that. I can't go with them and can say, okay, I match them or even overtake them when it comes to salary. What can I provide is fairness, honesty, and also security. I think that's another point here in Berlin. I don't know if you saw that a lot, but it's like a lot of studios open and close, especially the big companies. They open, closed, and they cut off some parts. Huge just closed down. Wargaming goes up and down. It's like Wargaming was at 1.90 people, now they're at 30 again. And there's all based on strategic decisions. And my goal is to basically not do it like that. I try to provide the environment where people can feel secure, as long as you do a good job. I mean, sure, that's always a given. But they can be secure, and they feel also a little bit still in control, because I think that's something that a lot of people hate when they are in bigger companies. Yeah, it's nice to have the fancy coffee machine, the really high paid salary, but they're not in control. Someone else somewhere, literally on a different continent sometimes, or somewhere far away, there's a green light committee. They all sit together, and then they rate what they see, and based on that, they switch off on whole departments. And I think that's what I not want to provide. I make sure that our games work, or that I provide a safe and secure environment for everyone that's working here. At least that's my goal. I mean, sure, reality happens, and I can't guarantee anything more than that. But for me, I want to make clear that that is one of my biggest objectives. It's like securing a nice work environment for my team.
Yeah, I think that's very beautiful, and that's a very grand and personal vision. And I would love to talk to you more about this in part 2 and kind of find out a little bit more how, well, what motivates you to do that, and then also maybe some more examples on how you do that. I have a couple of last questions for you for part 1 of this interview. Since this is the GamesNet Berlin Europe podcast, and GamesNet is a very event and socially driven endeavor, which right now, of course, is a bit different. I want to go down memory lane, or maybe anticipation lane, with you a little bit, and I have some questions for you about events. What's your favorite event for business in the?
For me, just to be clear, it's like, for me, this is also it's hitting hard. It's like, don't get me wrong, my 2019 was one of the craziest travel years I had in life. I've been to GDC, Gamescom, 100 different events, and it was a little bit stressful. And at the end of the year, I said, honestly, this still haunts me a little bit. I said at end of 2019, oh God, next year I really have to be a little bit cooler. Yeah? But no one expected what happened then. It's like everything basically cut off. And for me as a social person, I have the luxury that we have a massive, a big office, several smaller offices in a building. Which is really good for us, that we still have like 6-7 people here, and they can always work. Everyone is in their own room and so on. It's secure. We can still see people, at least with a mask, but you can see people. But for me, it was really a big challenge, because I love that. I can tell you as an example that the Games convention, Gamescom, I visited. That was my first ever conference I visited. In 2001 or 2000, was it? I can't remember. So I was at every single Games convention / Gamescom since it was founded, and I never missed one iteration. I was every time there. I am, and this and GDC, I would say Gamescom and GDC are my most favorite ones, just because it's less about meeting and going meeting heavy. It's more about meeting friends and talk. And
that's kind of the second question. The second question is kind of, what's your favorite event for hanging out? So maybe it's for you, it's both are the same, or
they're both the same. Yeah.
Is there a difference for you between like business and hanging out?
The cool thing about Gamescom is that it's more local, so it's more hanging out in Cologne and in cool places and stuff like that. So that's an easy one. And then GDC is more exotic. It's a different country, and so if you are there, I didn't go every year to GDC, so GDC is more international. You meet less German games friends. You meet much more like international ones, and also because I extended a lot of time with going to Napa Valley or whatever. For me, it was also more a little bit like a work, like a holiday thing to go into GDC, while Gamescom is really hardcore drinking and meet event. So I think both are really fantastic. And in between, there's a lot more effective ones. Like I think for mobile game people, Pocket Gamer is fantastic and super effective. Pocket Gamer Connect was one of the best things ever done by the Pocket Gamer team. I think they were one of the most successful meetings you can have, because you can have one meeting after another. There's an investor a meet up and all that kind of stuff. So I think personally, this is a really, really, really fantastic event just to be successful in this way. There's a lot of other ones, which some of them in Berlin, they were always a little bit more relaxed. Like the Berlin Games Week I miss it like crazy, but it was never sorry to say that, but it was never to meet like unique or special new contact. It was always more enjoying Berlin together with friends from some international friends that came over. but most people came more over for Berlin and less over for really like awesome connections or something.
I understand. Let me ask you this. What's a defining memory connecting you with Berlin and maybe the game scene here?
I mean, that's the big one. I mean, I am here for now, 25 years. So quite a bit. So at the beginning, there was no game scene. So to be clear, it's like when I started in games, when I told you I did this little stint in like old feature phone games, there was nearly no company. I remember that Jens Biegemann, the guy from the founder of Vuga, came to us and talked to us about that Facebook game he wants to do, and because he knew the CEO I worked with back then, but there was nothing. There was no Vuga. There was nothing. Yeah, so back then it felt really lonely. When we worked in games, there was not a lot of studios here. I think Yaga already existed, but that was basically it. And then the years later, I feel that, and I think that's the specialty about Berlin, is like with it becoming more international, suddenly there was more and more talent coming to Berlin. And suddenly people found out, yeah, that's a great place to find people, that a lot of big talents, a lot of also a lot of nations, which was really great for, that's what a lot of people did, having localization and community management here. And so to basically publish their games in Europe, American companies, but also especially like Korean or Japanese companies did that, and some Chinese ones. So suddenly, and that I think was in the late 2000s, then suddenly it became that spot where, so now we can also make games here, and now we're at this point, and I think this is the cool part, is like where we suddenly have a really good and living environment. We have cool studios. We have a lot of talented studios. And I think for me, that all changed when I, and like 1 or 2 years into founding my company, suddenly I felt that the Berlin became much stronger. The Berlin Games Week came along. Everything became more international. Stuff finally the Berlin Games Week became English. So we had English speakers and stuff like that. So what I mean by that is like, this was, I think, one of the turning points, and this was around 2015 or so, where suddenly Berlin game scene felt like a thing. And that is really, and I think now we're at a really great point. We still, I mean, still struggling. Don't get me wrong. Like huge games, it's like big studios open their studios and then they close it again. But then Colibri games came. There was so much other stuff happening. I think overall now there is a game scene. But up to 2015, 16, I never had a feeling there's a real game scene. There was like, it was too fragmented and everything. But now finally, I have the feeling that there is something, and we also can work with each other. It's much easier to find good talents and all these kind of things. I think that's the key component. And
that seems to be the defining feeling for you, right? That it goes from loneliness, so to speak, to kind of a wild games jungle in Berlin. Is that it?
Yeah, that's basically what I think it is. It's like before you always fought alone, and funnily the last year felt a little bit like it again.
Understandable.
It's a weird one. I mean, the only thing people I had contact with was basically my business partners, Gearbox in our case. I mean, we talk a lot with them, sure, daily, and my investor, my new one, and stuff like that. So like there is some influence, and I have a lot of friends now in the games business. Is also something I never had before. Just to be clear, it's like before in my 2013, 14, 15, and I didn't find also like-minded people in the games industry. I'm not a typical gamer guy, probably because all my whole career in my past, when I came from music, journalism and stuff like that. So I was always a little bit different, and also that is also part of that when I founded my own game studio, but also suddenly found people that I like-minded, where I can have fun with, not just around gaming, but also like privately. I think this is also what changed a lot. It's like before, gaming was just basically running in parallel to my normal life. I just do air quotes here. And but now finally gaming became my life, because now it was not just sorry to say that, it's like in game journalism, you had a lot of different characters, but rarely there were people where I can go within a club or so. Or go.
Yeah, I really understand that. And Kristian, I really want to talk more to you about that in part 2. So why don't we wrap this one up here?
Yeah.
And quick last one: where can people find you if they want to hear more from you, follow you? Any social media you would like to send people to?
The funny bit is it's just literally on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my. It's a little bit sad, but I never got into Twitter.
That's fine, dude. That's not a problem. LinkedIn can be cool too. That's okay.
No, really. LinkedIn is very uncool, but it's the only place where I really continuously also post something and where I interact a lot with people. I have like 5,000, 6,000 contacts or something like that. And
that's the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
So people can just find you at Kristian Metzger there. Is that right?
Just Kristian Metzger directly and contact me. I'm really open with that. Until like a few days ago, I even had my phone number on our website, but we had to cancel that because I got so many different
I can imagine
for cold calls for all that kind of different stuff I got. So that was a little bit silly. So that's why we decided at the end to get rid of that. But if you can always contact me.
Okay, so if any of you want to get in touch with Kristian without calling him cold, Kristian Metzger on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for this one, and I see you and the listeners too in part 2. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to part 1 of this episode. Be sure to also check out part 2, which will be released 2 weeks after part 1 on all podcast platforms. So it might already be out by the time you hear this. Whatever platform you're on, subscribe or follow the GamesNet Berlin Europe podcast to listen to many more insightful conversations with fantastic games industry guests from Berlin and from all over Europe. Thank you very much and see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Hi there. Before you go, this is Florian, Project Manager for GamesNet Berlin Europe. If you want to stay connected to the network, find out more about upcoming events and links to other MediaNet initiatives, you can visit us at gamesnetberlin.eu and subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, and until next time.